Hi, everyone. I think we're going to get started here, and I'd like to welcome you. My name's John Meyer, Partner Solutions Architect at AWS, and I'm excited to participate in a unique discussion around, please, not another spreadsheet, using Amazon Techstrike, presented by Jefferson Frank and Belflare Technologies. Today, we're going to be discussing how to effectively extract data and text from any document, conduct sentiment analysis, and translate that into other languages. I think it's time to get started, and I'd like to introduce Tia. Tia?
Hello, John. How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Good, great, great. So, Tia, you're president of data transformation and co-founder at Belflare. Anything else you'd like to share about?
Yeah, so my role here at Belflare Technologies is basically the president and co-founder, but my main role, the thing that really, helps us all is knowing that I'm the AWS Alliance lead. And so what that means is the dedicated resource between our team, customer, and AWS to make sure that when we get onto projects, that those projects continue to move forward, that if anything, stalls in the project, that we're able to raise our hand, all come together and find a good solution to get around some of those stalls so that we can move the project forward in a timely manner and get our customers to market.
All right, thanks. So not only do you that, I've had the chance, you and I've had a chance to kind of interact over the last couple of weeks, in fact, the last month. So not only does she do that, but she has a great personality. I think we have a lot of fun just chatting. I can see that. I think we just have a lot of fun chatting in general, and everything we're doing today is pretty much unscripted. I have a couple of starter questions. Other than that, we don't know where it's going to go. And don't worry, Tia is very prepared.
Yes, I'd have to say I'm excited to hit the fun button with you today, John. So let's go.
All right, awesome. So, I just want to remind everybody this is actually meant to be a very casual conversation type podcast. In fact, we will not be showing any demos today, but what we're trying to achieve is an understanding of Amazon Techstrike and how powerful it is and how it's being used today. Anything else to add before we jump right into it, Tia?
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to us jumping right into it. I think this is a big thing when you're talking about AI and machine learning, especially when you're talking about, such powerful tools as Techstrike, and really aligning our conversation around what the tool can do today. What it, can potentially do tomorrow is limitless. We all know that. But just, I think, making an emphasis on it being a machine learning tool. It's ing. It's an action word, which means it's continuously learning. So it may not know what you needed to know right now in this next 5 minutes, but I guarantee with the teams at Amazon and your use case, it'll get there in 10 minutes for sure. So
Nice, nice. So I think you've kind of jumped into it a little bit. My very first question is, what is Techstrike? And I think if we start with that, we can give everybody an understanding of what we're trying to achieve today.
yeah, that's a fantastic question. So Techstrike is an amazing tool that the wonderful folks at Amazon, AWS, have actually created out the box. It is machine learning at your fingertips. And it's along their initiative that they want to get machine learning into the hands of every data scientist, which means you do not have to go out and, learn how to hard code all of these things. They're trying to put those tools right in the hands of the data scientists that have the data at their fingertips to make it actionable immediately. And you do see that with the whole suite of tools, Techstrike being one of them. So Techstrike being able to utilize this to go beyond OCR today, which a lot of companies are utilizing OCR. OCR still has, it's still kind of time consuming because there's still some manual processing that has to happen. And Techstrike overcomes that. Some of those things and challenges in OCR today would be the quality. Maybe it's a little fuzzy. I have seen very, very quite fuzzy text and documents, and I said, there's no way Techstrike's going to be able to pick that. And it was able to lift it. And I consider myself having pretty good vision with 20/30. I could not see some of those items, over a Zoom. So I was very shocked when Techstrike was able to actually the teams at Amazon at AWS have done a great job of calibrating the tool for any and every challenge. So it is learning. But as we get to throw a challenge over the wall within a couple of days or so, that challenge has been solved by the team. And so I really appreciate that about not just AWS, but the tool itself. So being able to extract that all of the text on a document, and then, assigning key values, right? So knowing that John Meyer is, maybe if it's a medical document, the patient name, and associating that is pretty fantastic. So you no longer have to sit there, as a human manually going through these documents, extracting all of the key values. You can actually set those key values, have the machine pick it up, and in about 15 minutes, you can run 1,000 documents. So that is far and above what I could ever do, even on my best day. I completely focused, and I can be completely focused. But it just helps to, helping these companies to go from good to great, basically. That's the way that I would describe it. How do you take that manual process out of those spreadsheets that you're seeing today? I mean, whenever you see a person with spreadsheets or a stack of them they have to go through, I never see anybody throwing a party for that. Techstrike is able to come in and replace that, so that that person can then add their value down the upstream, right? And by way of insights on top of the machine, just automatically picking out those key pairs, you're reducing the errors, right? And at the same time, if you're working with OCR today, even if it's rotated text, so sometimes we see that, maybe you get a file and the text is, reading left to right, but then there's a rotated check, and that's in the middle there. Techstrike is still able to pick that up. So you no longer have to then even go through the pile and then make sure that that's rotated along the same alignment of the other documents. That OCR today, that would be a challenge. It also can read check boxes. It can read values that are in text and actually make in tables if they're in columns. So sometimes OCR is not able to read things that are in columns. It will read them, but it will put it together in a way that is not legible, right? So it's not any value to you. You're still doing a lot of manual work. So how do we get people their time back? How do we get these companies working more operationally excellent? And how do we, take the manual work and hours? I find some people, they say just to organize the documents, to rotate them properly. One company we spoke with said they've already spent, I think it was for 30 patients, over 200 hours just organizing the docs. That is not going through the text and actually pulling those documents out. So if Techstrike can do that in 15 minutes, I think no PowerPoint presentation necessary. I mean, it's like, let's continue the conversation from there. But basically, it's there to extract text, right?
So Tia, you gave a lot of useful information. And by the way, if you ever see me taking notes, they're bullet points that I want to capture.
Yeah.
I think one of the things you mentioned, and I don't want to say it's right on topic, is even on your best day of going through the documents and trying to put all that in there, I find myself, if I have a stack of documents here and try to do it on my best day, it'll be my best week, because what happens is oh man, shiny object, I'm going to the next thing. This is not fun. So having Techstrike do that is pretty cool. You mentioned something I didn't know about it, is that it actually reads check boxes as well.
Correct, sir. It reads checkboxes as well. So that's a pretty awesome feature, and it's HIPAA compliant. So that's, a great news to our medical folks that may have a lot of
check that box,
a lot of check boxes potentially, for sure. Yeah.
No, that's really cool. You also mentioned that the document, if the document has an image in it sideways. So what I'm envisioning is a bank. You have your statement and all of a sudden they threw a image of a check sideways on it. Now you got to read that, and imagine those people actually going through and, okay, now I got to turn it sideways, rescan it in there. 200 hours seems like a lot, but I'm sure it's a lot more time that they're putting in doing this. And Techstrike, if you can cut that down, spend the upfront time and cut that down to like 15, 20 minutes of reading documents, I mean, sold. That's pretty cool.
Right. And that 200 hours was before she got to the spreadsheets. So that's
that's very true. That was just organizing them in a way that I could read them or get it in there.
Correct.
Nice. So do you want to give some clarification? You mentioned OCR. Do you want to give some clarification what OCR is for everybody and kind of the comparison between that and Techstrike?
Yeah, so OCR, I think it's a good level up, right? And being able to not manually have to do everything, but at least you could actually, scan PDFs and actually get them from a paper on a desk and actually into a system of some sort, where it's the whole document. Now you're not really parsing out the information, right? And making key pairs and getting insight. But what you have done then is it made a good place where maybe you can store those documents and now they can be accessed by different portions of your group if you're spread out, different organizations. So you can share that information very easily, right? By PDFs, right? Usually it's as a PDF. So that was a great leg up from, having to do everything manually, including the share. But I think that that's the biggest value that you get out of the OCR is making them now digital assets, right? Hard assets can now become digital assets. And there are some things you can make them searchable, right? So you can with a little bit of work, search through a document. But again, there's still some manual pecking that has to go even into that search and knowing what to search for versus the machine actually doing that search for you as well as that extra layer, and just giving you the insights.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. That's a good. So actually, what was interesting is my first question was about Techstrike. My second one is what problem are we solving on? But I think you answered that within the definition and helping that out. I think that's a huge problem that we're solving right there. Something, the title of this is not another spreadsheet. So how are we going beyond those spreadsheets? Do you have anything else to add to that actual statement?
Yeah, so going beyond the spreadsheets today and using Techstrike, so there's another friend on AWS called Comprehend. So if you know anything about AWS, everything is very purpose driven. And so Techstrike's main purpose is to seek and search out every word and find the key pair. That's his job and its main mission. There's some other things, but that's the main mission. It then can pass it to its friend Comprehend, or in the sense of our medical friends, there's a medical Comprehend that has a lot of medical friendly terms that are not used in day-to-day language that Comprehend would recognize more of the day-to-day. But medical Comprehend is going to recognize medication names. It's going to recognize even, bacterial names, which, is Latin. I mean, these are not things that we usually say in our day-to-day. To help you then with like one of our customers, they're trying to automate the medical coding and billing cycle. Well, they start their day with spreadsheets. So how do we then help them to utilize the spreadsheets of what they're trying to cross-reference across by having also the patient information that come from the provider and actually utilizing this entire system, Techstrike to extract all the text, key value, key pairs, having comprehend between the spreadsheets and reconciling against the patient forms that come from the medical provider. So I'm no longer doing a lot of that reconciliation as well. So that's it's making the spreadsheet less and less, I shouldn't say important, but it is making it less and less, a consumption of my day, because now the machines are now learning of how to do that reconciliation, right? The same thing that I would sit here and do for hours, I'm teaching the machine to actually do that portion. So on the other end, now you can then come across, I see you have the lovely S3 bucket behind you. How do we then use S3, right, as a part of that architecture then to dump in that information that now the machine has extracted? You can now utilize S3 and bring it across an architecture that makes sense to get data visualization with one of our best friends also from Amazon, QuickSight. So now you're not looking at raw data, raw text, and reconciling it. The machine's doing that part on the front end. You've automated that. You're just loading up the information, and even your customers can load it into your portal, and it comes across this beautiful architecture to insights. So now you're just looking at insights and you're making actions on them. That's where you're spending your time, and that's where at the end of the day we're trying to get to beyond the spreadsheet. Right? How do we get to those insights quickly so we can quickly inform or make decisions around that billing cycle? Is it the correct billing? If we're auditing, where did we go wrong, and then where did we drop the ball, and how we can go back and like share those learnings, over, with the team, or retrain the machine, right? Because it is machine learning. So you do
Yep.
have to have a certain mindset. It's not going to get it 100% of the time, but if you teach it about 3 or 4 times, it's like a child you have to keep, or even us. You don't get it the first time. Maybe the second time you're a little clearer. The third time, okay. The fourth time, you're like, got it. I can teach the world. And so then it's ready to perform, right? Those actions. So that's what I would have to say about that. Yeah.
Now you mentioned about that 100%, not 100% accuracy, obviously, but have you done any type of analysis? Like I am a human here, and I'm trying to do my spreadsheets, and I got that about 70% right, versus having Techstrike do it and getting it close to 100% right. As you train it and educate it a little bit more, it's more accurate that a human would have to go back. Now humans are definitely error prone as well, where we see something, we're going through it and we might fumble it, where the machine is only going to do what you tell it to do and train it to do, and after a while it will get better. What's the accuracy difference that you might have noticed?
It can be vast. So it depends on the human who's training it. That's number one. So you're only as good as your teacher, right? A copy is only as good as its original. So
Yeah.
a lot of times seeking out the right professional, I think is the first thing that I would encourage customers to do. The right expert in that field that you're trying to automate and bring intelligence to, because then the system will inherit that level of intelligence and it can build on it from there. So we want to make sure we're going from the PhD level right off the bat. So that's the first thing. That will vastly impact the documents that then go in and the confidence level you'll get out of the machine. That's number one, right? So we can't just blame the computer. We have to, it's a shared responsibility, right? Like Amazon, there's always a shared
I
responsibility.
love how you threw that in there. It's a shared responsibility. If you're familiar with the shared responsibility model, Tia just mentioned that one.
Yeah, there's another angle to that, and it also applies to machine learning, not just security. But in all seriousness, so that's number one. Number two, as it learns, yes, you can do side by side comparisons, and that's one of the things we try to sit down with customers and say, okay, what are your expectations? Like, where are you at now? And they'll usually tell us where they're at so far as the errors. I've seen some processes with human 100% manual as accurate as 25%. Yikes. So they were really desperate to say, even if it does 30%, we know we're moving in the right direction. And the machine, the machine is usually, what we've been seeing on average, it's usually more than 50%, right? In a lot of cases. There are some cases where it's lower, but it's not been trained that. So
Yeah.
it's inferring at that point off of what it knows. But once you teach it, and it learns very quickly because it's just a matter of feeding it and then, doing some coding and tweaking, it learns very fast. And then there's another service that we haven't mentioned where you say, hey, maybe we're, if anything is below 80%, maybe that's my threshold of confidence level. If the machine gives me something that's 80% or less, what can we do? You can do human review as a service now with AWS, which is awesome. You can do it with your own trained, staff or group of people where it can kick it out automatically. So you can have that script ready with your S3 bucket there that will then dump that into the bucket, and then they'll get a notification that says, hey, there's something in the bucket for you to review. And they'll know that it's basically it's below the threshold of what you will allow for your particular use case. So it's customer by customer, what are the levels. And then that human reviewer can look at it and the machine will actually say, hey, this is what I thought it was. I'm only at 30% on that though. Can you look at it for me? So even in the review, you don't have to go through the entire document because that would really defeat the purpose. You could have just did that up front. So it will actually flag where you need to take a look at those areas of low confidence. And then as the person reviews it in the system, they're training it. So they fix it. The machine says, oh, that's what it was. And it assigns then that value to it. So the next time it comes through, it might be at a higher level of confidence, maybe 60%. They may have to do it again. And then you can see if it meets the threshold or not after that. And you can or some people decide, you know what, under compliance, we have to have 100% review, but guess what you can do? Human review. You can use this service called augmented artificial intelligence, which is A2I on AWS. So either you can have a group or it can be farmed out to a special group that's specific for medical, specific for legal, or not so much a generalist, so they know what they're looking for around those particular documents to actually help with the training. And there's a third selection that you can also do as well. So you have 3 different options on that, and you make human review as a service, and it's automated as well. So still, again, helping people to achieve their goals of automating that process as much as possible while the machine is learning, and you're going from good to great as you innovate with your customers. So.
Interesting. Now you mentioned it. First of all, I got to mention the S3 bucket behind me. I usually do, well, and Tia's thrown it out there a couple of times. Everybody uses S3. Doesn't matter what conversation I'm in AWS, you're using it. Whether you know it or not, you're using it. So it kind of works for this. I might leave it up for a lot longer. I used to have the smile. Now I might have the S3 there. It depends on how long it lasts. And I'm sure we'll reference it again a couple of times. So you also mentioned the A2I in preparations for this awesome conversation. I'm not a Techstrike expert, so I did a couple of workshops on there, and one of the colleagues put together the workshop, and I went through it, and I found out amazing on how I can just upload this bucket to S3 then, and it would go ahead and do its processes, and I didn't have to go through all that. You also mentioned that yeah, what's it going back through it and validating it, basically having a human do it or the A2I do it. If I assign this, I found a value, okay, that was not correct. It didn't read that value pair correctly. Can I fix that and have it re-evaluate the documents, being that I have hundreds or thousands of them? And I don't want to say, okay, well, it's next time it goes through it. How about reevaluate currently?
Yes, you can, because you're actually inputting the appropriate value so that it can see the association. And there is a loop process. So you can have that go in a loop. You
Oh,
could set a loop if you want to, right? Where it goes through a few times, right? Multiple times, and goes through that same check. And then you can check the accuracy there. So there, the options and opportunities that you have to improve and to teach the machine are pretty much limitless. It's just up to you and your process and how you're set up in your company to do so, right?
awesome. All right. So I know we have a specific use case in mind here that we want to talk about and bring to light. I'd like to do that now because we have another guest speaker that's going to be joining us here in the second half. And I want to make sure that we have time for that. Plus, I have some more questions for you. I'm not sure we're going to get to all of them today. What usually happens is we have to either do a blog post and answer them all, or we just have to do this again and have more fun.
I vote for all of the above.
Sounds good to me. Check, 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 and we'll put that in there to Techstrike and it'll read it. So what use case do you have for us today, and really describe how a customer's using this? And I believe it's a startup, correct?
Correct. They're a lovely startup out of Florida. Fantastic group, super smart around medical coding, billing, and just all things healthcare. They're called EPL Innovative Solutions, and we're so excited that they chose us as their AWS partner to help them to get this lift off the ground. But that is their main mission, is to automate that medical coding and billing, process. They've talked about the multiple errors that happen. And in this case, errors, and in a lot of cases that customers come to us, their errors are costing them money, right? So they're more of an auditing firm, right, where they help to audit, but they want to be more and also be able to be on the front end where they can automate that billing process on the front end instead of auditing and telling companies where they went wrong. How do we just kind of be proactive and help them not to lose the money to begin with? And so they'll be using friends like Techstrike, Medical Comprehend, and the A2I service to validate and to teach and to train across those medical codes, right? Those ICD-10 and soon to be 11 codes now because they update every year. So they have a variety of documents that they get. So that's what we call the 3 V's. It's the volume that you have to consider. So how much do you get, right? The variety. So across different medical institutions that will upload patient records, there's no standardized record. Everybody kind of has their own form, their own sheet, their own face sheet. So how do we then also teach the machine to look in different places for the same information? So
Oh,
really putting it
interesting.
to the test on the variety, and then the velocity. How quickly do you need that to be turned around? Does this information need to be turned around to your group in 24 hours? Is it in near real time? So we just make sure that we're considering the entire scope of the architecture on AWS that we'll need to put together in order to deliver the solution for the customer. And so for them, it's not, so near real time, 36 hours or less. If we can do that, then they're more than happy with that. I know that Techstrike can do it. I know that these, but it's just a matter of teaching it some of the nuancy things that are specific to their use case to actually help them to be proactive get the right, diagnoses coded properly, and then get the doctors compensated. Because there's a lot of doctors losing a lot of money every year, from what I understand, over $1 million potentially in just errors that they cannot then be compensated back by HMOs. So that's
Let me ask you a question on there. The turnaround time in 36 hours, was that your customer's requirement,
correct.
or was that any type of limitation you're in? It was just their requirement?
That was a requirement. That's their test. They want to put it to the test. So
They
I
want to
love
put it to.
challenge. Yeah. So
Yep.
uh, they gave us every challenge that we could throw at Techstrike, Medical Comprehend, and A2I today. So super excited. We're working very closely with the AWS teams to optimize and continue to optimize on their use case. So thank you.
Can you real quick walk me through the turnaround there of 36 hours? What are you providing? What document are they providing? What is Techstrike doing? And the 36-hour mark of coming back, what are they ultimately looking for at the end there in that 36 hours? Because I always see room for improvement. And so
Correct.
if 36 hours and you're handing it to them in 24 or something like that, I'd be like, yeah, you gave us 36, but we're just going to do it in 24 for you. But hey, it'll sit there for 12 hours whenever you get to it.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So their documents are patient records that come from various medical providers that then upload to a system. When they upload the document, goes to your lovely friend in the back, S3. We use another, underrepresented, it's very highly represented, but not spoken of a lot, is Lambda. So Lambda and step functions then will trigger in that S3 bucket and the service to actually kick all of this off as an automated process through Techstrike, picking up very pertinent information that they look for over and over, time and time again, that they know they can bill for. So there's certain things that that if you have intelligence around medical coding and billing, there's certain entities that they're looking for out of those documents. And so it's set to look for those entities, do the value key pair, and dump them into comprehensive, comprehended, and then give a confidence scoring across, those two services on where are we at. Do we need to kick this to A2I to confirm that, or did we hit the confidence level that we needed? And then it outputs it to their system where the forms will be filled in. So it's pretty fantastic. Kind of an end-to-end where they then can kind of just do a little QA at the end, and then they're ready to then submit that for billing, right? So that the medical provider could either get paid or send it back to the medical provider, and then they send it in to get paid.
And one last question on that one. Is that a bulk of documents happening in that time frame, or is that 36 hours per document?
That's a good question. I believe like if I'm a medical provider and I'm sending over a patient, the goal would be if we can get it turned around in that time, that's great. If it's a bulk of documents, I think that probably would still apply, right? That we're still trying to hit that mark. So I think they get a mixed bag. Sometimes they get bulk, but most often they get like single patient files from what I understand.
And I'm going to assume from our conversation here that your 36 hours you're making with it no problem. So
So good assumptions. They're all good assumptions. Yeah. But in all seriousness, it is still learning. So there are certain things that we are still learning and working with the teams on. And that's one of the benefits in working, I think, with a partner, right? That is aligned to not just AWS, but to the product teams embedded within AWS. So we work very closely with the Techstrike team, Medical Comprehend, and A2I, having, almost weekly cadences with them, which is awesome. That we're able to then bring them into those client conversations. So we're all on the same page. As you all are going from good to great and making prioritizing the product features in the backlog, you're getting it straight from the customer's mouth, which is exactly what you all are known for. Being, customer centric on, driving all of these product features forward and making sure that you're building what the people want and not just things that are really cool, but no one's going to buy them. You all never miss the mark on that. So it's a great value add to our customers. They also get to then forge a very nice bond and relationship with the AWS teams, and it really just helps for the entire engagement moving forward.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask another question. I think I have two questions. My second question I'm going to save with our guest speaker here. Let me ask you this next one before we bring it in. We were talking backstage, and I call it backstage in previous conversations and even beforehand. And as they say about resources and who should be on staff for these type of projects or engagements. And you mentioned a few things that should be taken under consideration, and a phrase that's actually stuck out in my mind: take the journey with the customer, possibly the life cycle of the project or a full-time employee. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? And I did like the phrase take the journey with the customer. So yes, I did write it down because I wanted to.
Well, here's another one. We're all better together. So that's the way that I look at it. The goal here is to leave everybody off, I think, in life, period, not just in engagements, better off than you left them. And so I always keep that, I think I hear my mom in the back of my head, not just in these, in life, but in client engagements too. It crosses over. And in one way that we've done that, we've been able to partner with fantastic partner, looking outside of ourselves, and reaching over the aisle to Jefferson Frank. They have been fantastic, not just for us, but also our clients. And what I can say is we've worked with many recruitment firms, and I think they have to take that designation because maybe that's all that's there. Or, if you click on a online or something, you have to designate. That's the only box that they have. But I would say that they definitely are much more than a recruiting firm. In taking the journey, they've taken the journey not only with us, but also with customer and AWS. So now, you're looking at a four-wheeler, not a tricycle, which is fantastic. Should a customer, after we have now put in place this wonderful, solution, we've trained them, they have a pretty good sense of what they need moving forward. They may need more of a dedicated resource for new data types that come in, right? Beyond the engagement. If they're not going to continue on with us on a maintenance kind of cycle, they decide they want a full-time employee or they want somebody kind of more contract, just dedicated to the data science of maybe a particular solution like this. We're able to reach over the aisle and to our friends at Jefferson Frank and say, hey, if you could find us an AWS certified data science, I mean, you kind of can go down the list, right? And check off the box. And they are so creative in the ways that they actually work with different individuals. There's so many different ways that they can creatively make sure that they're sourcing the right talent for the right project and for your particular company. And they even look at the culture of the company. Like they go beyond, they don't just throw a person at a company. And that's what I love about them. They get into the knit and grit of who you actually are. And they say down to the person, because they have such a personal relationship with the talent that they source, they know that even on culture, this is a good fit for you. So they really check off more boxes than this is the degree they have, these are the certs they have. They look at the person and what they bring to the table too. And what's important to your company, making sure that it's central to them as well. So I would say leveraging Jefferson Frank to kind of get in there and, expand not only our bench, but actually, that's another way we make a good relationship with our customer, making sure that they get the right person, whether it's us for longer term or they need someone. We reach over to Jefferson Frank every single time for that one. So we're big fans.
I like your comment. They're just looking at the culture and not just putting a body in there. It always brings back throwing bodies at a project, throwing bodies at it. And I always hated that term because you're not getting quality or anything. So that's a very good comment that you're calling out there. So speaking of that, I actually have another question for you. But before I get that one, I think it's actually a good time to bring in our other guest speaker, Patrick Navarro from Jefferson Frank. Patrick, why don't you join us? Hey,
Hey,
Patrick,
John.
how are you?
All good if you can hear me. Mic
Yes.
check. Yeah,
Mic
great.
check is good.
Tia, thank you so much for the introduction.
You're welcome, Pat.
So real quick, Patrick, do you just want to give us a quick background? What do you do at Jefferson Frank? And, how do you help?
So my role within Jefferson Frank is more on a customer-facing role and understanding the actual AWS technology. So I tend to be very customer-facing. I work with the Alliance Group. I work with our account managers and also try to really understand a client's technical requirements to provide an enhanced experience when it comes to the searches we conduct.
Nice. I have to let you know that this is not my first podcast with Jefferson Frank. In fact, Jefferson Frank stepped up when I had a virtual career fair back in June. I was hosting it on my own private channel. And what I was looking to do is give back to everybody that's being affected by COVID. Hey, are you looking at Jefferson Frank? Presented some openings, and hey, reach out to me. I'm hoping that throughout all the stuff, even one person got a job out of the entire thing would be great and beneficial. I've done actually a couple of other ones thanks to one of my partners who I deal with, who has a direct relationship. So it's actually nice to work with Jefferson Frank again. I think it makes these podcasts a lot easier and a lot conversational.
Yeah, and yeah, thank you so much for including us then and including us now, John.
Yeah. All right. So Patrick, I really appreciate you joining us. And I think this is a perfect time to actually ask the question to Tia is, and I think you mentioned a little bit about it. Outside of AWS, not many people specialize in this type of solution or services like Amazon Techstrike, Comprehend, Medical Comprehend, which begs the question, and I think you kind of hinted at that one. How do you resource for this? In-house, Jefferson Frank, training, work together?
All of the above. So that's a
Sorry, I
loaded.
didn't mean to answer that for you.
Yeah, all of the above. Yeah, but our team, we're very highly focused on the whole data cycle. So wherever a customer happens to be in that data journey, we're then able to bring that solution to life. So we have multiple teams working at any given time on a data project in various phases, whether it's the migration or all the way up the stack using the machine learning and getting insights. But occasionally there is a SME that we may need to reach over the aisle that's very, very specific to a particular business, because we don't want to just throw technology at a problem, right? And so I think that's why we really appreciate the depth and breadth that, Jefferson Frank goes to actually look at an individual and say, no, here's not just a person that, understands data science or what have you, even on culture, but they also have a pretty good grasp of just AWS in general, but also they understand that industry. So it could be retail, it could be, law, it could be a medical resource. They'll make sure that they can find that needle in the haystack for you in a very timely fashion. And like I said, it's just, I think the nature of the relationship they built and the bonds they build with people, with their customers, whether, it's like myself or with the clients that they're sourcing, which are also their customers. The relationship they've really built is just really built a good bond, a good layer of trust where you can reach over the aisle to do that. So we do heavily rely on our teams, but occasionally we will look for that very specific SME, and they're able to help us with those relationships.
Interesting. Patrick, I'm going to pretend I'm Tia and I'm calling you and saying, I need a person with Techstrike or this expertise. I mean, are you just be like, oh, this guy's got AWS? Yeah, they're fine. It sounds like you're sitting down with them and, all right, we have to find exactly what we're looking for on this one, or it's not going to be a good fit. Are they culturally fit, not only along with their technical fit? I mean, how does that work? And by the way, Tia, I could never play you. Just wanted to act out a little bit.
Yeah, so really how it works on our side is, to Tia's point, the technical screening is a small part. We really do look at individuals' backgrounds, try to create the best possible match. But one of the nice things that we have at our disposal is just the size of our actual workforce. So we have about 200 recruiters here in the U.S. alone that all they do all day is just find individuals with AWS experience, centered around essentially different skill sets. So we will work with the company to identify what beyond Techstrike is out there, and due to the data generation and the amount of people that we speak to on a daily basis, we can usually provide a decently sized short list, and then really provide the customers the ability to have their pick of the appropriate candidate when it comes down to the cultural and soft skills.
Now, I can imagine that there's really not that many people out there with Amazon Techstrike experience. So if you're limited on the number of people who have it, are you looking for any other qualifications? Are you investing into those people and saying, hey, listen, do you do any training, or do you work with like Tia and say, hey, listen, We're going to do some extra training on that one. This person's a very qualified. If you invest in them, they will be one of your top performers in that. I mean, how are you finding some of this talent for these new services that AWS is releasing?
Uh, I feel like sometimes I'm trying to climb a waterfall to keep up with everything. But you know, we try to really hone in on what the, you know, if you find somebody with Techstrike, you know, what was their background beforehand? You know, Neptune, not to change the topic, is another one that we're, you know, really starting to see in the graph database space. So we, you know, start to look at where the candidates that have gotten into, you know, Techstrike have come from, you know, natural NLP, you know, machine learning, all of the above. And, you know, then we work with, you know, the customer to you know, provide that resource, then, and also work with a company like Bellfloor, you know, to provide that actual expertise, because we we can't always find the newest technology, and you know, we don't provide services and we don't provide the training. However, we can connect the dots into Amazon's training team, as well as, you know, partners, you know, such as Bellfloor, who are, you know, true experts in the space.
Interesting. T, you have anything to add? I mean, think about this. This is your specialty, obviously, but is it finding it difficult to find people with these special services, or are you know, one of the biggest thing is investing in your current talent and return and retaining them, but also to attract that new talent. I mean, what are some of the things, maybe some roadblocks that you might be running into?
Um, I think I think for us, the biggest roadblock is time. Probably. I think there's no shortage of people. And what do I mean by that? There's a lot of people that want to learn and I think are eager to learn. I think we're finding about a 10%, right, return on investment when we're burning the wick at both ends. So what do I mean by that? Yes, there's a
Mhm.
lot of mature talent out there, and Jefferson Frank is awesome at helping us to source that should we need that more senior talent. What we're what we're doing at the other end of this is actually training up more junior talent by, you know, partnering with local universities and even universities, you know, around our offices that we have in Atlanta, New York, here in Florida, and on the West Coast out of the San Francisco area, right? Because they don't have experience and people are not hiring them, there's now cloud computing degrees out there now where they are very focused in cloud computing and they get a really good understanding of that. You couple that with somebody who's also doing the computer science portion where they're actually learning how to code, because we all know infrastructure as code, that's what it's all about. So if you can dig into the code and you can actually then apply that real life training for them by actually having them, you know, work backwards from the customer, do some of this other training to layer on that real life, you know, layer of what does it mean to serve as a customer beyond putting hands to keyboard, because that's not what it's all about. We've been finding a pretty good return on that and pretty good return on investment, where we're not, you know, we're not just going for the senior talent, but also looking at developing junior talent, and we're looking everywhere. Like we're yeah, so there is a shortage, but we found that with the right partnerships, and I think, and to your point, in like the podcast you did in giving back, we feel that that is just a portion of giving back, whether they work with us, whether we say, hey, Jefferson Frank, we, you know, we're kind of at capacity, you know, but this person's been trained up. Are they able to source them as well? So the partnership kind of works both ways there, right? And where you're not just kind of recycling the same talent, but you're actually now adding to the mix new talent, the next generation. Bridging that gap between classroom and industry is where a lot of it's a good portion of our focus, right, as well. So
Yeah, so Tia, some of the things you say, I do take, I'm taking notes on some of them again, and I'm gonna have to ask you to sign a waiver if I could use them in some of my social media stuff. You know, the copy is only good as the original, and you know, we're all better together, by the way. We'll talk later. I'll send you my write-up and
awesome.
for your approval on that one. I find the best information comes from the casual conversations that we have and the natural flow unscripted there on there. So I really, another question I have for you that I didn't get a chance to ask, and this is actually, you know, Patrick kind of plays in both of them. Working with Techstrike and customers out there, are there any gotchas that you've run into, not only with utilizing Techstrike or the customer, or, and then Patrick, in your case, the talent that's out there? So Tia, I'll let you go first.
Um, Gotchas. I think because the machine is still learning, there's always a gotcha. There's always something it hasn't seen yet. And so, making sure that the customer is comfortable with that, I think at the onset, sooner rather than later, to make sure that they make a good decision for themselves, right? As to what are the expectations, and making sure that the MVP that we have built and the features we have built are something that the tool, we have a good mix of what the tool can do today, and maybe there's a couple of, as you call them, gotchas, that we can teach it, and they're up for that challenge of teaching it, right? It's not a super long time, but it just know that it's not just 100% out the box can meet every use case. So making sure that their level set, I think, is probably the biggest gotcha, and making sure you do that from the first conversation, so you don't lead anybody on or lead them astray as to machine learning, what it is today, what it is tomorrow, right? Always give them the promise, but also the reality of them being a shared model, I think, is the gotcha for a lot of customers.
Awesome. Patrick, I'm going to pass that over to you. And it doesn't have to be around Techstrike, but maybe finding the talent. What are some gotchas that you can provide some feedback on with, getting maybe the right talent, or maybe something that the talent can work on to work with customers? I mean, any feedback would be valuable.
I actually think what we see is it's not so much a gotcha. It's more of I necessarily didn't see it coming, and now I need to expand. I mean, what we've seen with AWS, you start small, and it just continues to mushroom, continues to grow, and technologies such as Techstrike, it turns over a lot of stones that people didn't even know were there. So we actually experience when new services are going in and cutting edge services are going into companies. It actually starts to ask a number of questions they haven't asked beforehand. And open up further opportunities, and continue to expand a combination of AWS services and thinking. So it's always interesting watching the customer's journey as they put something new in, or as they learn something more, and how much more they have to continue to do. So it tends to be more of an eye-opening than a gotcha. I hope that answers it.
Actually, that was perfect, because I think you kind of nailed it on there. Not just a gotcha, like I didn't know. And I think when you mentioned that when a new service comes out, there's so much more that I didn't know about, that I need expertise for. I think that was a perfect explanation on that one. So I really appreciate it. So I'm going to round this out with a couple of things. One, there's going to be a call to action here, but Patrick, do you have anything else to add before we kind of round out some of this?
Now, honestly, just wanted to say thank you to yourself and Tia on behalf of Jefferson Frank and our entire team over here, and look forward to continuing to collaborate.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm sure I will have another time to do an event with you guys. I really enjoy it. I always have fun with that, and it's just I actually get to meet all awesome, cool people from Jefferson Frank. So Patrick, this is the first time. Well, not the first time we met. We met on backstage, but on that one, our virtual backstage, because we are all safe here. So Tia, I got a couple for you, a couple of things for you. One, I know we didn't do a demo. I'm thinking we need to do a demo, maybe do another podcast here of a 30-minute demo, like play around with one of them. Look, here it is. We'll do it in less than 36 hours. I promise everybody. Okay. Or we could just, have a camera running for 36 hours, but you'll get it in the first year. So whatever. So I think that's our, basically our call to action for our next event. What do you think?
I think that's a great way to segue into another event, right? We've kind of, set the spike. You set it up for a spike, right? The demo is the actual spike, because I think, at AWS, I think the global BD, she said it best. She said of AI services, she said the best way to validate your hypothesis is to test it. And so she said more often than not, the results speak for themselves. So
Excuse me, writing that down. Sorry.
Yeah, that one, you'll have to ask your colleague to use that one, but that is a quote that's
Wow.
out there. But I think that, and I'm a microbiologist by my original trade. So I totally agree with her. Testing a hypothesis is the best way to, see the results. You can look at a PowerPoint and theorize all day, but until you see the rubber meet the road and actually see it in action, and you can actually then, look at how it performs, that's the best indicator. Right. And that is not, that's right on the money with machine learning. You have a theory of how you're going to test it, you get the output, and you just kind of go back and forth, right, iteratively until you achieve the results. And so that's what I would say on that.
Nice, nice. Yes, everybody saw me writing down another one on there for these comments and saving them for later. Tia, I got a quick question. I noticed on your website, don't you have an event tomorrow as well? Isn't there
I do, sir. We are having an AWS Immersion Day, and it is on modernizing your apps on AWS. So we're actually going to build end to end, hands to keyboard. We're going to do some intro slides, and then you'll get some AWS credits to play around with. So as you spin up resources, you don't pay for them on your account, but you'll get to kick the tires on how to modernize your apps end to end. Tomorrow and the following Thursday. So we're going to break it out over 2 parts. So if you missed part 1, don't feel shy. We'll get you caught up on part 2 to put hands to keyboard so you can participate as well. And we'll also give you the labs that you can take home with you. And I say take home, we're probably going to be at the house virtually doing this anyhow. That you can then still utilize those credits and do some of the other workshops that maybe we ran out of time or we don't get to. But it should be a great time. AWS essays will be there. Our essays will be there so you can get some real-time questions, answers to your questions tomorrow and next Thursday.
Nice. Awesome. And I think the last thing, there's always that call to action here. Tia, why don't you round it out here of, that call to action? What's the next steps besides our podcast number 2 and demo and probably some other stuff we'll eventually do together, because I'm having a lot of fun doing this and I think there's a good collaboration here. So
fantastic. Yeah, so I would have to say a call to action would be, let's test those hypotheses that are out there. Right? For anybody that's watching this on replay or you happen to be here now, what hypothesis do you want to test? And let's do a POC. Maybe it's around 1 or 2 things and you say, these are deal breakers for us in moving forward with machine learning. But if the tool can do this, it can do this 1 or 2 things, we can move forward with a larger project because we see that there's promise with the tool. And so the Techstrike team is offering, in conjunction with Bellflower Technologies, a Techstrike, what they're calling a Rapid Start Fund. So that's pretty cool, where they will fund that POC with the customer for our professional services to help to train, if it doesn't, the tool doesn't already know, the 1 or 2 things that you're trying to, have it do for your organization as a proof of concept, as a deal breaker proof of concept. So today that is the call to action, and you get $5,000 in partner cash back for our professional services. You get $5,000 in AWS credits, so you're not paying for those resources as you spend them up for the pilot, and it's over a 5-day period. So within a week, the goal is to find out where we are in that particular POC. How you would get started is that you would contact us. We would do a discovery session to really nail down what the POC is and make sure it's very well defined. It gets approved by AWS essays from a technical and business feasibility standpoint. And then we get started and working with your team side by side. And if you don't have time to dedicate to the project, we're able to then do the project, and then you can check in with us daily to get updates on where we are in the solution building of that.
yes, and if you don't have time or the resources, hint, Jefferson Frank is on this. So
yeah,
it was a nice plug-in. I mean, it was like perfect for you.
I'll take it. Perfect, John. Thank you.
That was a perfect volley. Yes.
Hey, listen, I try. I definitely try to do it. All right. So, folks, everybody, thank you for joining us. I got to thank Patrick. Patrick, thank you so much. I really enjoy working with Jefferson Frank on this. I really enjoyed having the conversation as well. So thank you for joining us on this fun and interactive podcast and my S3 bucket.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John.
Yep. Thank you. And Tia, I don't know if I can thank you enough. I had so much fun on this, very enjoyable, casual conversation on that one. This is definitely a fun time. I hope everybody got a lot of information out of Amazon Techstrike, but also what Bellflare Technologies does. And, you know, I think if you could talk to Tia personally, you would have a lot of fun as well into it. Tia, you're on mute.
It's another call to action. I'll make sure I'm on those calls that come after this.
Yes.
Anything coming through this podcast, I'll make sure I'm there to say hello. And I just want to say thank you to you. I don't take it lightly that anyone took their time to put this together. John, it has been fantastic meeting you virtually. I could just imagine in person. You have a lot of energy and it translates in a very beautiful way. And how you, I think, care for partners, your customer obsession, partner obsession, and Amazonian obsession. I mean, even other Amazonians, they say lovely things about you. So I just want to say thank you to Pat. We've been on a couple of podcasts together, and I appreciate sharing the virtual stage with you. To those behind the scenes, Victor, Tracy, Lauren, and Sue, you always come through, and your excellent support to everyone. So I just want to say thank you very much.
First of all, Tia, thank you for all those kind words and compliments. If the lighting wasn't on, you would see me blushing a little bit more on that one. I really enjoy just bringing it back to, you know, partners and customers and interacting and having these casual conversations. This is where I have a lot of fun. And, you know, I'm hoping everybody gets the same. Yes, thank you to everybody behind the scenes. Tia mentioned everybody because I don't think I'll probably miss somebody, and I don't want to offend anybody on that one. So thank you, Jefferson Frank. Thank you, Bellflare Technologies. Thank you, Tia. Thank you, Patrick. Really appreciate it. Hope everybody had fun, and we will do this again.
Take care. Thank you.
Yep.
Yep.
Have a good one.
Thank you.